welcome. You're listening to the Leading Hope Podcast. My name is VJ Williams, here with my friend and pastor, Kevin Jack. Thank you for joining us and taking time out of your day to become a better leader. If you're new, welcome. We release a new episode every Wednesday. We would love for you to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Get that automatically downloaded every week on your favorite podcast platform.
Well, we're saying podcast platform over and over again.
It's the favorite one. I forgot. Favorite.
Not just a podcast platform. Your favorite podcast platform. Podcast platform.
There it is. MySpace. Also, share this with a friend on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Please rate and review on Apple Podcasts. A few extra minutes absolutely help get this in the hands of many more leaders just like you, trying to get better like us. Visit leadinghope.online. Get updates. All the other episodes, all 206 of those before, are available. But today we're on 207.
207.
Episode 207. You've titled this, What People Mean When They Say Deep. What do they mean?
What do they mean?
What do you mean? What forever do you mean, sir, sire?
I don't know why you're doing what you're doing.
It's just the way you wrote it.
So, I want to get into...
Are we going to go deep?
So, what I want to get into today is helping speakers, communicators, be it pastors or whatever it is, because I think everyone has a desire to have creative content. Yes.
I don't know.
You don't know if, pause.
Yeah.
In the conversation.
Yeah.
My statement, I think everyone has a desire to have creative content.
Yeah.
And your rebuttal is?
I don't know if everyone does. I think most.
Okay.
Yeah.
You think some people...
I think some people
are perfectly fine just saying what everyone else said and phoning it in.
Yes.
All right. That's a fair statement. So no rebuttal from me on that.
Yep.
So for those who don't, I want to talk through, and I've had a couple times, I joked about this I can't even remember. It was on a Sunday in a sermon of like, I was early on and someone came up to me after a sermon and they were just like, I thought we were going to go deep.
Oh.
And my response was like, my joke now is like, I'm 24.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have that much depth. I can't. I've never been through anything. And so I think
that's a tough thing to hear after you. This is after you.
Oh,
gave a
yeah.
sermon?
People are, yeah.
Oh, I mean, that's almost like saying, I thought you weren't going to be dumb.
I know you say that jokingly.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize that is what someone speaking hears.
Yeah.
Because like some people would just be like, I just really want to go deep.
Yeah.
It'd just be like, you're stupid.
Yes. That's, I'm sorry that happened to you.
Oh, it's happened more than once, just to be clear.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Like recently?
No.
Okay.
No. I'm antagonistic enough.
Deep.
I'm antagonistic enough when I preach that it happens to me less. Like when you're younger, like you don't really you just assume you're supposed to take it instead of being like, you're a mean person. Yeah. You should not be telling me this. Yeah. So
that's good.
There you go. I'm getting cynical in my old age.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I'll let you know.
Thank you very much. So, like maybe the first note to take is don't tell anyone they're not deep. If you don't think it's deep enough, maybe go somewhere else. That's perfectly fine. Yeah. But like, don't tell them that. But here's the, like, I want to walk through this because I think this is important for as people are crafting content to understand what's taking place. So like, sometimes people would be like, I thought we were going to go deep. And legitimately, like, people be like, yeah. I'd be like, I don't know what you mean. Yeah. Like, I don't know what you mean by deep. And like, the response would be like, well, like, like, we already know this. And so I'd be like, so is new deep? Is that what we mean? Yeah. Because that was the most common response. It'd be like, well, I've already heard that. And go, but that doesn't mean it's not deep. Is new deep? The other thing, that I wondered if it was, is it confusing? Is confusing deep? Because like if you give a message and you
not clear, it's deep.
If you give a talk, whatever it is, and you just like put the thing in a sentence and be like, here it is, like it could be loaded with sacrifice and meaning and everything else. But like you like play a little thesaurus game, switch out some of the words, get some better synonyms that have some more syllables, come out there, phrase it in a way that no one really understands. Be like, oh, that was deep. Like, does it mean you didn't understand what was happening?
Yeah.
Because some people, like, could I just acknowledge, some people prefer confusing because they now have a permission slip to do nothing. Yeah, give me confusing theological message. Shroud it with terms that I don't even understand. And then I can walk away feeling like I've been in a smart room, but I don't have to do anything. That was probably too loaded and too harsh. So if that's you, I apologize. Although everyone on the other end who speaks regularly is like, yeah, people do that. And so like, I just want to say, like, I went through this process to be like, what do people mean? Because it'll commonly come up. What do people mean when they say, I thought we were going to go deep? Is it new? Is it confusing? Is it any one of these things? For some people, just to acknowledge, especially like this is like specifically just for pastors on the other end. Like for some people, it is verse by verse preaching. Someone has told them at some point in time that the only preaching that is actually meaningful is verse by verse preaching. Yeah. I would argue Paul wrote more than one letter because there were different issues at different places. And so that's why he wrote more than one letter. He didn't simply say like, hey, church in Galatia, I already wrote to this other church. Actually, he wrote to the Galatians first. Like, church in Ephesus, I already wrote to Galatia. Go see their letter. The book of Romans. My letter to the church in Rome. Go talk to the church in Galatia. I already wrote a letter. Like, and some people think that
like, a lot easier.
It's only going through verse by verse. That's obviously not the case. I don't know how to describe it. I'm not anti that by any means. I do a portion of that every single week, but that's obviously not the definition of deep. So here is my conclusion.
Okay.
Is that when people say they want something to be deep, what they actually mean is unfamiliar. I don't want to know exactly everything that is being said before it's said it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so as we look at that, like any rebuttal, any pushback, I want to make sure we're on the same page.
No, I think that's correct. Yeah.
They're saying like, I kind of knew that, but I heard it in a new way. You said it in a different way. I've never looked at it through that angle before. And I think it's important that we're aware of what's taking place, because if you're viewed as shallow, people are going to tune you out. I would acknowledge repetition is important. Jesus, over and over again, told his disciples that they were going to take him, crucify him, but that he was going to come back again. And like, it wasn't like, Jesus, we already heard this message before. We're kind of used to it. We're good to go. And so I just want to acknowledge that I believe that when people say, I want something to be deep, what they mean is I want it to be unfamiliar. I don't want to have the full expectation in advance of everything that is going to be said. I don't want to just be able to finish every sentence that you're saying because I already know what's coming. I want it to be unfamiliar. Good?
Yeah, I would add some stuff, but yeah.
Anything, because I'm going to drift into application now.
Yeah, and then maybe that's what I'm talking about, application.
Okay, so here's my belief, is that if that is the case, that deep means unfamiliar. No one's going to define it. No one's going to say, I want us to go deep. And when I say that, I mean, I want it to be unfamiliar. I think that's what's actually taking place in people's heads, though.
Yeah.
Is our problem is we want to turn unique language into familiar concepts. And we should not do that. Otherwise, we're shallow. So I would say, let me give an example. A long time ago, I preached a message called The Miracle of the Grass.
On ice. Sorry.
The Miracle of the Grass. Message was on Jesus feeding the 5,000. Yep. Language within the feeding of the 5,000. Yep. is there were thank you.
Go ahead.
Is there were all these people who were around, they hadn't eaten. Disciples come to Jesus later on. They say, these people haven't eaten. It's getting late. We have no food for them. We have no money to buy this food. Send them away. Jesus says, well, he said first, he's like, you get them something to eat. They're like, that would be a lot of money. And then he says, what do you have? And so they go, we have 5 loaves and 2 fish. You got your notes?
I do. How about that?
So they got 5 loaves and 2 fish. Jesus has the people sit down. He gives the note in John. There was plenty of grass in that place. He blesses, he breaks them, he distributes them. Everyone eats. There are 12 basketfuls left over. Here is what is fascinating to me. Just quick note on the passage very quickly. The disciples come and they say, we have too many people. We have no food. We have no money. And it's getting late. Like, we have a big problem, we have no resources, and we're almost out of time.
Yeah.
And John, in his writing, says there was plenty of grass. So I use that in the passage to say there was plenty of space for God to do his work.
Yep.
Good?
Yep.
Now, the message is about margin. The message is about not packing your life so full that all of a sudden there's no room for God to interrupt your life. I'm going to kind of preach the message while I do this podcast so people understand what's taking place within this.
I can even quote you if you want.
Go ahead. What you got? What's stuck out?
It's easy to fill time. It's hard to find time.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
I like it. So like the message is about margin.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, like you could, if you want to pull this out, talk leadership context, we could talk margin as well. I want to use it in a spiritual context, obviously, for the purpose of this message. But here's the key is at no point in time do I say we're going to talk about margin because people have already heard about margin. I'm not going to say, let's talk about, you need to create just a bunch of free time in your life. If you completely pack out your life, what I do is to say, like, as soon as I switch the language to the familiar concept, all of a sudden it's no longer deep, because deep is unfamiliar. And so I use the metaphor of grass. Right. And now grass, for the duration of the message, is a placeholder that I use in my head that when I want to say margin, when I want to say space, I say grass. I've already explained. Grass is the space that God used to do his work. And so I give a message on the miracle of the grass. And if God's going to move in your life, you need grass. And if you're going to have relationships, there needs to be grass. That God wants to do work, but there needs to be enough grass in your life. Now, no one's thinking actual like green lawn in that moment. They understand I mean space. Yeah,
because you matched it back to the text.
Absolutely.
So before you eat bread, you need to get grass. And you've used that in the text.
Before, that's right. I forgot that phrase. Before, and so like, let's pause. I had actually forgotten. Like, before you eat bread, you need to get grass. Before you're focused on what you're filling yourself with, you need to focus on creating space that is needed to do that work. So I get done with the message. So many people came up to me. Like, I don't say this in a bragging way. I want people to understand. Came up to me and they're like, that was amazing. That was incredible. That was, in like a couple people, that was so deep. And I'm laughing in this because I'm thinking.
You mean unfamiliar?
I'm thinking, I gave a message about margin and I actually didn't say anything unique. Everything I said has been said before in some way. And I guarantee you, all those people who said how much it meant to them, they have heard it before in some way. The difference is I did not use familiar language. I kept it unfamiliar. I saw the part in the text, which I believe is good. Sorry, I was going to use theological terms. Good exegesis, good hermeneutics, good interpretation of the text and what's taking place. And I kept it in that same spot. And now I'm not at any risk of being accused as shallow, even though it is familiar. What they hear is unfamiliar.
Correct.
Make sense?
100%.
Now, this is where that gets like, so like your first piece, if you're a communicator, may go, I'm sick of people telling me I'm not deep. So I'm going to say, use unfamiliar language, not incomprehensible language.
Yeah.
Okay. This is not pull out the thesaurus and let's use all the big lofty words that no one understands. That's not the point. That is the opposite of the point. Okay.
Yep.
You are ascribing to familiar concepts unfamiliar connections. And when you stay and then you don't bring it back, because like if I would have gotten 10 minutes in and say, let's talk about margin, everybody turns off because they've heard to talk about margin. I stay talking about grass. And so if I could describe what's taking place, like in your brain are neural pathways. Those neural pathways, some of them are like side streets, some of them are highways. Those neural pathways are designed for you to require less energy to think. And so this is where our habits are. This is where previous episode, our common disciplines are. Yep. These are the neural highways in our head that information is naturally processed because we don't want to require the energy to think because we didn't have necessarily the calories that were needed in previous generations in order to require all that manpower in our head. The problem is that if information gets on those neural pathways, we already know what the response is. We tune it out because we've heard it before. And so you have to find ways to approach familiar concepts and cut new pathways in order to get new behaviors. That is what matters most, okay? If they hear things and they think, I've already heard this, they already know what their response is because nothing's unique. And then they go, you're not deep.
Yeah.
And to say the way around that is not massively complex, confusing. The way around that is to use unfamiliar language within familiar concepts to never turn it back into the familiar language. And in so doing, they're cutting new pathways. They're forced to think about familiar things in new ways, which leads to new behaviors and new outcomes.
So good. I mean, there's a number of things that people need to think about next time they're going to preach within that, because the unfamiliar
message, whatever it is.
There's another layer that's going on for other people there too. That is, you have taken the living Word of God in its ancient text format and made it accessible to today's life.
Yeah.
To a person who has not has not fully taken on the text for their life.
Yeah. And
that's what people are drawn to too. So that's being unfamiliar at the end of the day. That's what you're saying. It's so funny. And it's you're at the top of this for pastors or preachers. Like this you're at the top, but there's other people that can do this. Anyone can do it.
Yeah,
but
anyone can.
You're not going to do it overnight.
Correct.
And it's going to take time. I was at a conference recently, and I was trying to find my notes here. The pastor, it wasn't quite. He didn't hit quite on there, but he was trying to talk about Jesus, like the spit.
Yep.
Like literally spit. You could have done it 100 different ways. You could spit in this thing and on this guy's eye. And he gave us the 4 truths about the spit you're going through.
That's great. That's great.
Right? Like, so not spit, like, the other word.
Yep.
And so, but the concepts is using that kind of thing. So this is, but I don't think it's practiced as much as we would want it to be.
And I think I don't know how to say this as either we're too literal or we're too cute.
Yeah.
Like either people are just like, well, I'm just going to say it exactly how it is. And I say, well, that's not necessarily the most effective way to say it.
Yeah.
Or they overly obsess about like, and this was, I just think that's the case. Like people get like, I'm sure you're really impressed with your creativity. Yeah. That doesn't necessarily make it helpful to those who are here.
Yeah. What's the best way, and this is the last question for this episode, for people to help people understand what they really mean when they say deep?
Well, my guess is,
not by direct talking to them, which that could be a whole nother episode.
I don't want to
how do you help them not say that anymore?
I don't want to overly criticize the person who says that something isn't deep. I want to acknowledge it's probably a little selfish.
Sure.
Okay, a little, especially for church context.
Yeah.
Probably a little too focused on you.
Yeah.
The other side of it, though, is I get the piece where we say I'm tired of the same information. Now, I want to acknowledge you need to switch your perspective from I am hearing this to be entertained to I am hearing this in order for my life to be better.
Yeah.
And like the piece on there is to go, okay, you've heard it before. Have you done it?
Yeah.
Because my guess is if you looked through everything spoken information given to you through an application lens and not an entertainment lens, that you would look at things very differently. Yeah. So you go, I've heard it before. Have you done it? Okay, probably you need to keep hearing it.
It's good. Great. That's the episode 207. Thank you for joining us today. If you're new, we release a new episode every Wednesday. We would love for you to subscribe and download. Also post about it, rate and review, or both. You won't believe how that helps get this podcast in the hands of so many more leaders just like you. We love hearing your stories of how the podcast is working in your life or business. DM us on Instagram or send a note to leadinghope.online. We would love to hear from you. And remember, everyone has 20 minutes to learn to become a better leader. Make it count. Woo!